Welcome, everybody. This conference will now be recorded. Welcome, everybody, to our executive committee meeting. We'll start off by just ensuring that we do have a quorum. Oh, I'm sorry. I guess the first thing we need to do is read the statement of virtual meetings.
Okay, I'll do that. In light of the 2020 COVID-19 virus and current guidelines regarding physical distancing to reduce the potential for spread, meetings of the Richmond Regional Planning District Commission have been transitioned to a virtual format. Regional public bodies were granted authority to conduct meetings electronically pursuant to the provisions of Virginia Code Section 2.23708.2 and related legislation approved by the General Assembly of Virginia during the period of the Governor's State of Emergency Declaration for COVID-19. While we do not know the exact duration of the current practice of electronic meetings, we will continue to function in this manner until such time as it is deemed appropriate to return to in-person meetings. Staff provided notice of this meeting and the means by which we are virtually gathered to members of the public on Monday, August 31st, 2020, through electronic posting and the Plan RVA website and email distribution of notice to members, alternates, and known interested parties, including the media. This meeting will be recorded. Audio and visual recordings of the meeting and materials will be posted on the Plan RVA website within 48 hours of this meeting. Any members of the public wishing to participate as an observer during the meeting today may submit comments or questions at any time during the meeting via email at info@planrva.org or by using the online chat functions of the meeting platform. Those individuals who are observing by phone may be called upon to share questions or comments. This meeting agenda will include two opportunities for members of the public to address the body. All comments and questions submitted during the meeting will be viewed following the meeting, and to the extent practical, responses will be provided or posted on the Plan RVA website. We ask that everyone identify themselves first when speaking so that we may more accurately record the activities of the meeting. All lines will be muted by the meeting administrator to minimize additional noise and feedback. You may unmute your line at any time to request acknowledgement from the chair. Staff will be monitoring the chat functions throughout the meeting to assure we do not overlook anyone wishing to participate as appropriate in the discussion. Does anyone have any questions regarding the process for assuring effective facilitation of this meeting or how members of the public may participate? Okay. I will now ask our clerk to certify that we have followed the approved procedures for appropriate notice of this meeting and the means by which we are convening. Diane?
Yes, we have.
Thank you. Now, if you would, please indicate your presence by saying here when your name is called during the roll call. Staff members will also be asked to identify themselves, and anyone else who wishes to identify themselves following the roll call of members may be invited to do so. Ms. Fusco, if you'll please call the roll.
Thank you. Mr. Cota? Mr. Winslow?
Here.
Dr. Newbill?
Here.
Chairman Spoonhour?
Here.
Mr. Davis?
Here.
Reverend Nelson?
Here. Here.
Ms. Page? Mr. Nordvig? Mr. McGraw?
Here.
Thank you.
Thanks. So we do have a quorum.
Great.
And we are ready to get started.
Great, excellent. We did have a little bit of a discrepancy in the statement, and that says there's two public comments. Do we typically do two public comments in this meeting? As I know we're going to address for that in the committee meeting, but in this meeting, do we typically do two public comments periods? Since we've been doing
we've done it multiple ways. Eric has been talking with me and giving me guidance. The requirements, we actually are not required to have a public comment period at all. We had added it just to be able to provide that additional opportunity for comment since we're meeting in this virtual format. But I think because we did read it in the opening statement, it might be wise to just go ahead and amend the agenda to include a public comment period at the beginning of both meetings, and then we can address it in the statement for future meetings.
Okay, now I don't see that for the executive committee as a line item. Do we need to take a vote to amend? So I do recommend that we would do the public comment because we did publicize it, and just in the beginning and the end. Do we need to make a motion for that, Eric, or can we do
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, can I have would somebody make a motion to add that so that we can be in line with what we published publicly?
So moved.
Seconded, Davis.
Thank you. Do we need a roll call, or can we just do it? Or any opposed?
Roll call.
Roll call. We've been trying to encourage the roll calls just because of the virtual format, trying to make sure that we have the record straight.
Thank you. Thank you for keeping it straight. Perfect. All right, Ms. Fusco, would you please roll call vote?
Sure. And could I just confirm who was the first and second for that motion?
I think
Was
we
it
had
Mr.
Mr. McGraw, and Mr. Davis seconding.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Winslow,
He's
Aye.
muted.
thank you. Dr. Newbill,
Aye.
Chairman Spoonhour.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
Aye.
Mr. Davis,
Aye.
Reverend Nelson,
Aye.
Mr. McGraw.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, great. So with that, I will open it up for public comment period. Speakers may address the commission for up to 3 minutes on any matters included in the meeting agenda. We just ask that you give your name, locality in which you reside, and if appropriate, the organization you represent. Members of the public may also commit comments to the chat function. Is there anyone at this time that would like to make a comment? Anybody in the chat?
No.
Okay, seeing none, I will close the public comment period. Thank you for that. Old business. So we have the meetings. Are we, Mr. Davis, are we able to review those? Hopefully you've been able to review them in their packet. Mr. Davis, are you ready to present?
I am. If there's anyone have any opposition, any changes, is everyone had an opportunity to review by silence? We'll assume that everyone has. Very well. Move for approval. Second.
We have an approval, motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Mr. Winslow,
Aye.
Dr. Newbill,
Aye.
Chairman Spoonhour,
Aye.
Mr. Davis,
Aye.
Reverend Nelson,
Aye.
Mr. McGraw.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thanks everybody. Moving right along. So we are going to move into new business, and right now I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Keeter, who's going to talk about a personnel policy review.
Thank you. The packet for the executive committee meeting this morning was rather lengthy if you printed it out or had a chance to look at it. The bulk of the materials are the draft personnel policy document. This is an advisory item only for you this morning. Just wanted to let you know that we are working on updates to the personnel policy document. The proposed changes address a number of different things that we're trying to accomplish. First and foremost, to be able to bring the personnel policy into compliance with the Virginia Code and the actions of the General Assembly this 2020 session. So this again is it for your information only. Process-wise, we are in the process of having staff members give comments on several of the recommendations. Obviously, the efforts to bring the policy into compliance with 2020 General Assembly action are not as negotiable, but we do have some additions on how we're handling, how we would propose to handle things like flexible time, work schedules, those kinds of things, particularly because of the remote work situation, but also just to try to continue to move forward in being able to provide maximum appropriate flexibility for our staff members so that they can, be satisfied with working here, and it can be a part of our recruitment and retention strategy. We've also incorporated a remote work policy directly into this document. We adopted that earlier this summer when we moved to remote work, but we think that it will be a good opportunity to be able to incorporate this into the future operating model for us. And we've also addressed the social media documentation that we had been working on through our public outreach and communications committee, and also took the opportunity to incorporate that language in here. So from a process standpoint, I'm sharing this information with you today. Certainly if you have any interest in reviewing or providing recommendations, we would appreciate that. Once we have the final draft of the revisions, it will go to Eric Gregory and his team for legal review, and then it'll get scheduled to come back to you for hopefully approval and recommendation to move to the full commission for approval. We're hoping that we can move this forward in the October meetings so that we can have an effective date of October 1, but that schedule could certainly slide depending on the magnitude of staff input. The last thing I'll say is that we are doing a survey among staff members. We distributed this personnel policy draft to them to review. In particular, I think the staff members have a lot of interest in the remote work policy. They also have a lot of interest in the section related to a potential conversion from sick and vacation leave to paid time off program, and then also the way that we handle the flexible day scheduling. Those three items have been the primary focus of staff feedback that I have received to date. We have a total of 5 staff members who have taken the time to complete our survey and submit comments. So far, I would say that the majority of those 5 who have responded are not in favor of a conversion to a PTO program. So likely that section, if that trend stays on, we will probably not move forward with recommendations to do that conversion at this time. So you may see that particular section look a little bit different, reverting back to the existing provisions. So that's my update. I'm happy to answer questions, but really just wanted to let you know that this is occurring in behind the scenes, and then it'll be coming back to you for action at a later date.
Martha,
Yes.
what is the primary concerns regarding the conversion of PTO?
So by way of a little bit of background, our current sick leave policy is such that staff members do not have a cap on the amount of sick leave that they can accrue. So it carries over year to year, and we are very fortunate. We have a very healthy staff, and so our staff members have a large sum of accumulated sick leave. It's about, across our entirety of the staff, it's about 5,200 hours. Comparatively speaking, our vacation that does have a cap, we have about 2,000 total hours accumulated for vacation. So, that maybe gives you a little bit of a feel. In general, when we would make a conversion to the PTO program, we would do a conversion where the sick leave would convert at a ratio, maybe 3 hours to 1 or 3 hours to an hour and a half, something like that. And the staff members have a lot of concern that the sick leave that they have currently accumulated, as well as the sick leave accrual going forward, would be reduced, and the effective total time off that the staff member might have access to would be reduced under our scenario. And they're opposed to that concept. So from a financial perspective, while the sick leave balances do carry, it's a liability insofar as it could result in what I would call unproductive or unbillable time if staff members were to, suddenly need to take that 5,000 hours. But from a financial perspective, it's not a cash liability because we don't pay out on sick leave unless an employee is retiring, and the payout for sick leave in that case is capped at $5,000. So probably financially for us, it's a bit of a wash, but from a staff member perspective, they have a concern that they would be at risk of losing. And many of our staff members view their sick leave accrual as their safety net for short-term disability. So because many of our staff members are in VRS's Plan 1 or 2, they don't elect to purchase short-term disability. And so this is what our agency has kind of historically provided as that safety net for them.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead.
Martha, you've got a great grasp on that. We've gone through the same thing when we converted to PTO in our locality. And we were holding some on the books. There was a substantial fiscal liability. I guess my question, what we ran into and what I've seen, both private and public sectors, folks don't like the conversion side, and STD and long-term LTD were concerns because people were using that either to get to their long-term disability or or use their sick leave as an alternate to short disability. I guess the question is, one of the things that has looked at when people switch over to PTO is giving more PTO, but then reducing the total number of days. So hypothetically, you have 10 days a year vacation and 5 sick, hypothetically, and then you just reduce it down to a total of, say, 12 days total, and it doesn't matter when they take it. But if it was to go over and there was further discussion, were there any discussions with staff that they would not lose their payout of $5,000 because that's already capped, and then recognize that those who don't take their sick leave would actually have more days off? They would have those additional 2 days in this scenario. But was that discussed? And the second question is the largest concern spanning the disability? Because if it's spanning the disability, they're not going to move on that, and I understand that. And if there's no fiscal impact, it doesn't seem like it's really a big deal. But I know those were long questions. Did you understand them?
Yeah, I did. I mean, Terry and I, in talking about this over the last couple of months, we anticipated that we would get some of the same concerns that you outlined, and we've talked to some of the other HR folks. Ashland, Wanda and Terry and I had a fairly lengthy conversation last month, and I'll say 2 things. I mean, one, keep in mind we have 19 full-time staff members and 5 people have completed the survey. So, I don't have a comprehensive view. 2 of the folks that took time to complete the survey gave very thoughtful responses specific to these concerns. So I'm really at this point in time operating on the opinions and the input of 2 people. I think that it is possible that if we can work with them and other staff members to really understand their concerns, we could come back at a later date with a proposal for conversion. And I think, our intentions would be to keep the employees whole, but it feels like the timeline that we might have originally been working on is a bit too soon to thrust this kind of change on our staff members, and we want to make sure we get it right. So I would agree with you. I think that there are lots of options in how we could manage a conversion that would, one, protect the existing accruals that staff members have accumulated for sick leave so that they wouldn't, in effect, lose that as a benefit of their tenure and a reward, quite honestly, for their commitment to not taking a ton of leave. And then I think also we can look at the way that we might handle the conversion as far as payouts go and the accumulations to make sure that staff members don't feel like they're losing out on the annual accruals. I think several of the staff members of the 5 that responded do acknowledge that a move to PTO does provide greater flexibility. It allows the employee to have more control, as it were, over the staff, the leave time that they have access to. I think they're concerned that it's frankly a matter of those 2 folks that took the time to calculate the number of hours that would be proposed under a PTO are in effect less on an annual basis than what they're earning now. So,
Martha, I'm just wondering for our next meeting for the larger committee, since the data is not comprehensive at this time, I'm wondering if bringing that point up is beneficial at this time, because we're not really sure if it's actually a concern or if it's valuable to have that conversation this early in the process. I'd love to hear from this group's their thoughts.
Well, I'll close out my comments. Martha, it sounds like y'all are putting a lot of thought in it, and you have your arms around it. So I'd be interested in additional information, but thank you for answering my question. Sounds like you've got a handle on it very well. Thank you.
our staff survey is open until the end of the day tomorrow. So I am hopeful that more folks will give their input. My thinking is that absent that section, the other changes could move forward to you, and then we could continue to work on whether a PTO conversion program is appropriate for us at this point in time, and we could come back to the executive committee with a recommendation that's more specific to that section of the policy, and also, you know, to be able to work out, I think, some of the details of what that transition would look like, and how it would affect employees, because I do think that that particular section is frankly more complex than a lot of the other changes that we're proposing in the policy.
Okay, I would just ask then, so it sounds like you're wanting to move forward with bringing up that there's resistance, even if it's just 5 of 19. I would just make sure that you sort of level set the expectations that it is early on in the process. It is only a few people, because we could get in a large conversation about this, and it may or may not wind up being an issue.
Understood. Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, cool. Any other comments for Martha? I only had one potential suggestion that I'll throw out to the group to see if they would find it valuable. I find when we're reviewing policies that have to do with guidance from the General Assembly and becoming in line, commingled with our own changes that we are driving internally, it's good to know which are which.
Okay.
Just so, you know, I'm looking at some of these things, and I'm not, like, I look at some of the verbiage, and I kind of prefer some of the old verbiage, but I don't know if that's a change based on the General Assembly guidance that we really can't have much input on anyway. So if it would please the body, and it would find it beneficial, Martha, maybe that might be something that helps with the review process.
Absolutely. I can add comments in that denote, I'll say there are 3 buckets. There's one set of changes that are driven by those changes with the General Assembly level, a second set that are driven by, I'll say, best practice and guidance advice from our insurance carrier, Virginia Versa, and then the third bucket are these changes that we're trying to drive internally from a recruitment and retention perspective. So I can note those so that it's a little bit easier to see why these changes are being proposed. That makes great sense.
All right, cool. All right. Any other questions regarding the personal policy review? Okay. Ms. Heater, if you want to talk about the open positions.
Sure, yeah. This item, I'll just begin by saying that I think I am hoping to introduce this topic with ideal of having some discussion this morning about what information would be helpful to the executive committee and ultimately to the full commission. By way of a little bit of background, this will be the first time that I, in the role of executive director, have approached the board with a request to create new positions. Our bylaws are, I think, fairly clear in indicating that the board must approve and budget for any new positions on the staff. And so, you know, traditionally we might undertake that in a budget process. However, this fiscal year, we going into the uncertainty of our economic conditions, we did sort of separate those two things. So the budget that the commission approved back in June for this fiscal year does provide for, in both the revenues and the expenses, these 3 new positions, but we agreed that when you adopted the budget, I would come back at a later time to request more specific permission and authorization to create and recruit for the new positions that we're contemplating. So that's kind of why we're here this morning. I've put together just sort of a brief summary. These could almost be viewed as the language that we would use for a posting or an advertisement. It's an abbreviation of what a job description would be for each of these 3 roles that we would like to request and recruit for. I also included in your packet a document that shows the full range of position classifications that we might have in our agency so that you can see the relative compensation levels. And hopefully it's also clear as mud, but it's also apparent to be able to see that several of the position classification categories do overlap. So typically in our field, we would refer to somebody as a planner if they have a degree in that field and have been or are working toward their AICP credentialing. If they are fulfilling a similar set of responsibilities and have similar level of accountability and oversight in the agency. They might not have a planning degree or be in the profession of planning, but they could be a manager. And so there's sort of some comparability there to be able to allow for differing academic backgrounds and work experience. So the 3 positions are intended to be able to support the agency as a whole in moving our capacity forward. We talked very, very briefly about this at our finance committee, and it'll be on the call, the agenda again for the 22nd. But the idea would be that this first position that would be classified as either manager 4 or 5, depending on negotiations and the skill set of the selected person. This role is really designed to be able to strengthen our administrative capacity, provide support to the boards that our organization supports, so not just Plan RVA Regional Commission and its 2 subcommittees, but also the RRTPO and its 3 subcommittees, and then also the Central Virginia Transportation Authority and its subcommittees. So the intention would be able to sort of bring that body of work together into a single role. I think Diane and Nicole have both been doing a phenomenal job at that, but it is a difficult role to do when you are also trying to perform other duties, and we think that it would actually be a better customer service experience for many of you that serve on multiple of these boards to be able to have a single point of contact. The second position is intended to be sort of depending on the individual that we might select from a supervisory experience perspective, really focused on community outreach, public engagement. Our staff members have done a phenomenal job this past year in developing a public engagement strategy and working very quickly on the fly to transition our plans for this year for how to get out into the community across the region and move that to kind of a virtual situation. But it is difficult for staff members who do not have a marketing or engagement or public relations kind of background to be able to think of all the different avenues on top of their regular responsibilities. So we're envisioning this role as being sort of a subject matter expert when it comes to marketing, communications, public relations, and also that community engagement side, who would work hand in glove with our planning staff to be able to make sure that we have a continuous program happening where members of the public feel like they know who Plan RVA is, they know what the RRTPO does, they know how to get involved, and at what point in the process their input would be welcomed and invited. And then finally, the third category, or the third position, is contemplated to be really focused to be able to move our strategic planning framework forward. We've talked a lot about how we really want our organization to lean into our responsibilities that the code provides, but also the reputation that we've built in the region around being that regional resource, whether it be for quantitative or qualitative data research and analysis. And so we'd like to be able to identify a person to fill that manager 5/planning 5 role to really be able to lead that work. Primary functions would be focusing on the TPO's transportation performance measures, supporting the regional indicators project. We've got an opportunity with the release of the 2020 census data to really think differently about how we provide data to the community, and also how we can help the localities think about their future planning, particularly because the shift in our community has been so dramatic since 2010. So that's super brief. I think what I'm hoping for today is a little bit of guidance from you about what process we might take to be able to hopefully get authorization to establish and recruit for these positions. I will say I feel a particular urgency around the establishment of that position number 1. We have, as an agency, a lot on our plate right now, and it would be really great to be able to bring that support, provide some relief to Diane and Nicole, but also to be able to just make sure that we're moving forward early in the fiscal year as much as possible. The other 2 positions, I think we'd be in a better position to actually recruit starting in the new calendar year. But I thought it would be helpful to all of you to sort of see my longer term plan and what I'd like to do as far as our staff capacity in this coming year. And we are working on some grant funds applications for positions 2 and 3. I don't have solid information about that yet, but that's part of the reason for the delay. We have the funding in the budget to support all 3 positions now, but I am looking for additional new revenue sources to support these, really to be able to get them positions up and running.
Team is here. I'll open it up for any comments or questions.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I certainly see a need for the first position that Martha's talked about here. I mean, certainly the CVTA being founded just a little ways ago, they're going to need some more staff. So, I mean, I would certainly support that position moving forward and in some sort of an expedited fashion. How that happens, I'll leave it up to the group, but I certainly can understand they've just had this basically dumped on them, for lack of a better term, and certainly understand they need some more staff.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Winslow.
I'll jump in, Mr. Chair, and just say I think whatever it is that Martha's asking for as it relates to the staff, we talked about it prior to my term ending, and I think we just need to offer up whatever kind of support they need. We are in a better financial place, and to make the work happen, we're gonna need some different people to come on board.
Appreciate you. Sounds like we have some sort of background noise going on. I'm not sure. There are no other comments. I'll move on to the chairman's report. I will save you guys from having to listen to my spiel twice, so I will sort of reserve until the larger body, but look forward to sharing a little bit about myself and kind of where I hope to see this go in the next 12 months. Now, turn over to Martha for her executive director's report.
Just on the last item,
But I have hi, this is Cynthia Newville. I'm not clear from the last item if we have authorized what we need to do such that Martha can move forward with the hiring of the positions. Is there some action necessary by this committee?
My understanding was that it was not necessarily from this committee, but that we'd be presenting to the larger committee in the next meeting, and if they gave sort of their blessing to move forward, but I could be wrong.
Okay, so I just want to be clear that I would be in support of her being able to bring on these 3 positions, and certainly the urgency of the first is, I think, pretty clear and compelling.
may I ask, just based on the feedback that we've gotten, would it be possible for me to advertise for the first position and make clear in that publication that it is subject to board approval, but we could go ahead and move forward with recruitment efforts, and then at the October commission meeting, seek approval for the filling of that position, since there seems to be some support in this group for that?
What is the pleasure of the body?
I would be amenable to that, yes. This is Cynthia. I think that would be appropriate.
Thank you, Dr. Newville.
I would second that motion. If that's a motion, I think it is, Mr. Chairman.
All right, great. We have a motion and a second. Do we need to vote on this?
Please.
Okay, great. So we have a motion and a second for the executive director, Ms. Heater, to move forward with the publication of the first role of manager, pending approval in our October committee meeting. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Winslow,
Aye.
Dr. Newville,
Aye.
Chairman Spoonhour, Mr. Davis,
Aye.
Reverend Nelson, Hay,
Aye.
Mr. McGraw.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate that.
Thanks, everybody. It sounds like somebody, a printer, might need to mute their line. Thank you. All right. So kind of got a little out of order. Thank you guys for keeping me straight. So I will turn it now to Martha for Executive Director's report.
Thanks. Not much to report this month. We've certainly been busy, as you all know, with the launch of the CVTA and moving that forward. As far as staff goes, this week our staff members that have children survived or are close to having survived the first week of school for many folks. So I think all things considered, they've been doing well and have been managing with that. We've got the audit underway. Terry and Diane were here most of the day yesterday meeting on site with our auditor. So that is underway as well. Scheduled to have the audit report to the full commission in November. So I want to just take a moment over the next several months to just continue to commend Terry and Diane for their efforts. I think especially given the circumstances of trying to navigate an audit virtually, they've done a really great job. So thanks to both of you for your assistance. We are continuing to function in what I'll call a mostly remote situation. We do have staff members that are coming into the office for various reasons. Easier to concentrate here in the office. It's access to equipment or hard copy files or what have you. So we do have the availability of folks to come into the office and have continued to make the improvements. We have evaluated the office according to the new Department of Labor standards and have determined that all positions in the organization and the agency itself are in the low risk category. However, we are continuing to adhere to the social distancing guidelines, mask wearing, and other health and safety precautions that are provided by the Department of Health and the CDC. Virtual meetings are continuing to function as they are here. We have made a move to be able to host the Finance Committee in person, so that group has transitioned back. Our meeting room is large enough that we can accommodate that and be able to move forward, and we will be hosting the Finance Committee of the CVTA in person next week. I will be honest with you that technology has never been something that our PDC or Plan RVA has been known for. So we are working as quickly as we can with the support of Mark and Terry and Diane and Nicole and Chet and Sid and many, many others to figure out how we can leverage our existing resources, but also expand as well as we can. So I will tell you that candidly, the apprehension to have virtual and in-person attendees in the same meeting is largely driven by the fact that our technology is not fantastic in the way of being able to assure that people can hear on a remote line and in person. So we're working on that, trying our best to be able to consult with partner localities, but also some technology teams that we've worked with in the past to outfit the boardroom. One, I guess we appreciate your support, really appreciate the efforts of staff to try to figure this stuff out, and then also just appreciate your patience and grace with us as we try to move as quickly as possible in the direction that we're working to go. So that's probably enough, but I'm, as always, happy to answer any questions or follow up with you guys after the meeting.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Heater. So for the sake of time, I'll move quickly to the second public comment period and open that up. Speakers may address the commission for up to 3 minutes on matters relevant to the body. Speakers are asked to recognize to give their name, the locality in which they reside, and if appropriate, the organization they represent. Members of the public may also submit comments through the chat function. Is there anyone that would like to make a comment at this time? Anyone in the chat function?
No.
All right. Then I will close the public comment hearing. And it looks like we are ready to adjourn. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved to adjourn. Second.
Thank you. I know I'm going to ask this probably for 1 or 2 more meetings more, but do we need to do a roll call for adjournment, or are we okay?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
That one's okay. All right. I'll make a note. All right. We are adjourned. Talk to you in 3 minutes.
Thank you all.
Thanks.